Hello there. Today I would like to discuss Beethoven's Piano Sonata number 14, Opus 27, number 2 in C sharp minor, the so-called Moonlight Sonata. This title is not given by Beethoven. It is instead given by a poet who was a contemporary of Beethoven's that heard the piece and said that it reminded him of Moonlight Lake or something like that in Germany. I don't know. You'd have to listen to Andras Schiff. He does a much better job explaining the title. But again, this is the Moonlight Sonata. It is Beethoven's most well-known piece for the piano besides the Fürlies, okay, which is a Beethoven piece. And yes, he did like the title Fürlies. I think he actually gave the title Fürlies. He did not give us the title Moonlight Sonata. This sonata is the most well-known out of all the sonatas ever written for the piano. This one's pretty well-known too, the Mozart. That's a C major sonata, but the one that I'm talking about is the famous C sharp minor sonata. I'm leaving the right hand out on purpose. It's really very beautiful in a haunting sense. Beethoven did not name it the Moonlight Sonata. This is not the original name. I don't think it has an original name, but he definitely didn't name it Moonlight. That's for sure. Okay, let's go over a couple things. Adagio Sostenuto alla breve. That's what I have on the piece. I wrote down alla breve a while ago, which is in cut time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So again, I'm going to go over the time signature with you. Cut time means that we count 2 beats per measure. 1, 2. So it's actually a very slow 2, but the ostinato, the triplets are quick, a lot quicker than most people interpret it. Most people, when they play this sonata, and most people when they hear this sonata, this is what's played and this is what's heard, and it's incorrect. 1, 2, 1, 2. This is not what Beethoven intended. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. This is often heard, and it is unfortunate because it is not correct. This is not the correct tempo for this movement. Beethoven, in his own handwriting, indicates the tempo that he wants. He has, in the original score, he's written in. You can go look for yourself. It's in a museum somewhere. Anyway, he writes down that a quarter note equals 56 to 60 BPM. And that brings us back to about here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is an adagio. It is not a largo, it is not a lento, it is not a slow movement. It is with motion, okay? So let's remember a couple things. Cut time, 1, 2. Alla breve, which means like a march. and that the tempo equals 56 to 60 for a quarter note. I also have on this score 30 for a half note. So that's still pretty quick. That's the 1, 2. That's a quick tempo for this sonata. Okay, let's get back to the name for a moment, and I also want to tell you what inspired Beethoven and why I think this has nothing to do with any sort of moonlight or any sort of lake. Again, so there was a contemporary of Beethoven's who was a poet, he was Germanic, and he named this the Moonlight Sonata because it reminded him of Moonlight Lake or something along those lines. Again, you should listen to the Andras Schiff lecture recitals on the 32 sonatas. You have to do some digging. They used to be on YouTube. You can find them on the internet, so they're a little hard to find. You have to Google specifically Andras Schiff lecture recital Moonlight Sonata. Okay, he'll explain it a lot better than I can. Let's also talk about the inspiration of this piece. This piece is more of a funeral march than it is anything else. That's right. This movement is based off of a funeral march. It's not based off of some sort of lake, okay? There's a scene from my favorite opera, Don Giovanni, in the first act, the first scene, where Don Giovanni and the commandatore are having a sword fight, and the commandatore dies at the hand of Don Giovanni. If you know the opera, you know the scene I'm talking about. Anyway, once the commandatore is stricken dead by Don Giovanni's sword, there's a lament. There's a song that happens within Mozart's sonata. Mozart's opera, when the daughter is lamenting over her father's death. This is the music. And guess who saw this music? Beethoven. Beethoven saw this music. He took it and he started writing it out, and he transposed it from F minor. And let's remember, right? He took this and transposed it to C sharp minor. Another little interesting fact about the Moonlight Sonata is that the tempo, again, listen to the tempo, listen to Mozart's tempo. It's very similar to the tempo of the Moonlight Sonata. Let's think about this figure too. This is a march-like tempo, and we also have a dotted rhythm, which is very, very, very reminiscent of funeral procession. Let's listen to the Mozart again. Right here. That's a dotted rhythm. Guessing. I actually don't know the whole piece. I kind of just am improvising a little bit, but it's very similar to what I'm playing. So the tempo and the dotted rhythm. Let's listen back now to the Moonlight. Is that without the pedal, the way I play both pieces is very staccato. I play the ostinato, the triplet, bum 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 I play this rather staccato. Same thing here. It's staccato when I add the pedal. You can't tell that it's staccato. The reason I play it staccato is because I have these sections coming up later. And I need this not only to be louder than the rest of what's going on, but also to be longer and more fluid. So I'm playing everything underneath it staccato, but I'm playing the actual melody very legato. So here it is again without the pedal. Pedal. No pedal. But you would never know unless I told you. This is another way to approach this movement and how to play it. Now let's talk about our hands and how our hands should be shaped to get a proper sound and tonal quality out of the piece. When you play the piano, your hands need to be fluid, okay? You need to drain all of the tension and anything like that out of your hands. See what my hands are doing now? That's how they sort of feel when I play. They kind of feel curled in a little bit, and they almost feel weak. They're not weak, they just feel weak. I'll probably play the whole movement in a moment, but what you need to do, what you need to be able to do is to let your hands relax the whole time. Not only for this movement, you need it for lots of Beethoven pieces, yeah? Because later on, you need to do some crazy stuff. I almost cursed. You need to do some crazy stuff later in that movement. Anyway, you have to keep your hands relaxed. Now, how do you relax your hands before you play the instrument? Well, if you're not sure, you can start like this. Take your arm, take your thumb, and push down the center of your arm and go all the way to your palm and go all the way through your middle two fingers and push out. And then you want to take the back of the hand like this and the thumb, and you want to just lightly squeeze and push all of the tension. Literally, you could feel it draining out of your finger through your fingertips. And you might need to do this several times for both hands. Another big tip is to use lotion. Using lotion on your hands will keep your hands a little greasy, and it will keep your fingers a little more oily. And oil is good for you. Oil is good for the instrument because if you do this on any piano, there's going to be a little bit of resistance because of your skin and because of the wood or the plastic underneath your fingers, or possibly ivory, depending on the instrument you're playing. There's going to be some resistance. You're going to want to build a little moisture barrier between your fingers and the keys, and to do that you want to put a lot of lotion on your hands. You also want to breathe into your hands. This creates humidity. What you want is little tiny beads of sweat, little droplets of sweat that will act as a lubricant on the piano, and then there won't be any resistance when you're playing. When you play, your fingers should look like this. They should just slightly drape over the keys as if you're petting a kitten or stroking someone's hair or sifting your hands through sand on the beach. This is how they should look. I'm going to go ahead and play the whole first movement now, okay, of the Moonlight Sonata. Please enjoy. Sonata number 14, Opus 27, number 2, composed in 1801. So he was just 21 years old when he wrote it. Incredible. okay, I'm not going to play the whole movement right now. I have to relearn it anyway. That's alright. Let me maybe pick up from the section that I just messed up. I had a feeling that was going to happen today. The funny thing about this movement is that it's, well, first of all, it's deceptive. It's like a lot of his sonatas. And it's deceptive in the fact that when you get to certain sections, they sound just like other sections, but they're just a little bit different. I guess actually, instead of playing the rest of the movement, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the importance of the key of C sharp minor and how famous it is for lots of composers. Let's consider this piece by Rachmaninoff. Later on we have this, of course, is the famous C sharp minor Prelude by Rachmaninoff. Even though Beethoven was one of the first Romantic era composers, he only used C sharp minor once in all of his sonatas. Little did he know how important C sharp minor is going to be for the Romantic era. So many composers use C sharp minor in the Romantic era. Let's think about this piece. Piece by Franz Liszt. And wait, it's in the key of C sharp minor, and it also uses what kind of rhythm? Dotted rhythm. Okay, the dotted rhythm is so important for Romantic era composers. Is the key of C sharp minor really important for the Romantic era, so is the dotted rhythm. And who would have thought that Beethoven foreshadowed all of these things kind of single-handedly in one piece? Think about how that's a big statement, by the way. There are several famous classical Romantic era pieces. Mahler, Symphony No. 5 in C sharp minor, the Chopin Scherzo in C sharp minor, Chopin Waltz in C sharp minor, the Rachmaninoff Prelude in C sharp minor, the Franz Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 in the key of C sharp minor. These pieces use the dotted rhythm, and they also use the key of C sharp minor. It is so famous, and to me fascinating, that in 1801 Beethoven foreshadowed all of these ideas for so many other great composers. Please remember, the most important thing to remember about today's video is the C sharp minor sonata is not called the Moonlight Sonata. It's going to have that title forever, but as long as you watch this video, you'll understand that this title was never given by Beethoven. It is the most misinterpreted of all of his sonatas, especially the tempo. I didn't even get into one section that I wanted to talk about today. Maybe I will in another video. But again, just remember, Beethoven, Romantic era composer, foreshadowed for so many other great pieces. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.